I'm Katie, and today we're going to talk about for-profit prisons. Um, how for-profit prisons are providing substandard um, conditions while profiting off criminals. Um, things we'll go over is what they are and um, how staffing's affected, how money plays a huge part in what um, they are and how they run. Um, what the populations are like, and what the conditions are like for the inmates serving time in these prisons. Um, so first, for-profit prisons are prisons that are run by private companies that are contracted with the government to provide housing for inmates when at a supposed lower cost. For-profit or private prisons were first established under the Reagan administration in 1984, and the first one was located in Tennessee. And after that, an astonishing 66 more prisons, private prisons, were established in the next 6 years after that. From 1990 to 2005, the prison population grew at a 1,600% rate. That's amazing. It's crazy, actually. 15 years, 1,600% increase. Now, opposed to nonprofit prisons or public prisons are staffed by government employees, and the for-profit prisons are contracted by the government. So there's just a little bit of difference there, and so that creates a difference in what they are, their rules and regulations surrounding treatment and policies surrounding staffing and that kind of stuff are vastly different between private and public sector of prisons. The private sector or for-profit prisons claim to save the government money, and how they do this is they cut costs on staffing and training and things like that. They hire fewer employees, giving them less training. So according to the Policy Institute in their article, The Problem with the Private Prisons, on average, the private sector employees are paid about $5,000 less than publicly run prisons, and they receive 58 hours less training. I work at a local government-run prison, and I had about 240 hours of training before they would even let me in the building. When you look at safety and knowledge of the population that you're dealing with, training is very, very important. So you know how to react and how to identify security threats. Let's see. Private prisons also employ lobbyists who go out and lobby for stricter and more stronger sentencing laws. So, the longer the sentence, the more inmates they have, so the more money they get, obviously. Um, they lobby. One thing they lobbied to stop was immigration reform, killing any hopes for legal statuses to undocumented people, thus keeping the flow of immigrants in their facilities. Um, in a Fox News article, um, the cold hard facts about America's private prisons, they state CoreCivic, one of the private prison companies, saw more than a 500% increase revenue over 20 years. They jumped from roughly $280 million profit in the year 2000 to an astonishing $1.77 billion in 2017. That's just crazy. The Sentencing Project states that the two largest private prison companies, CoreCivic and the GEO Group, which collectively manage over half of the private prison contracts in the U.S., had a combined profit of $3.5 billion in profits in 2015. The AP News in Atlanta reports that in state prisons, it costs roughly $44.56 per inmate per day, compared to $49.07 per inmate per day in a private prison in the state of Georgia. So they claim to save money, yet that's roughly $5 a day more per inmate than the state prisons. The U.S. has the most inmates per population than any other country in the world, and that would be 1 per 110 people in the population in the U.S. So out of every 110 people, one of them will be incarcerated in prison. The Sentencing Project states that there's been a 716% increase in the number of incarcerated women in the U.S. since 1980. That's huge. New Mexico reports that 53% of their prison population is in private prisons. Meanwhile, 22 other states in the U.S. do not employ profit prisons. They say the Sentencing Project also states that 73% of immigrants who are housed primarily in private prisons. So the Center for American Progress reports that there was about 4,841 immigrants detained in for-profit facilities in 2000. And by 2016, that number jumped to 26,249, a staggering 442% increase, which is just phenomenal. And would you believe that from 2000 to 2016, the private prison population grew 5 times faster than the total prison population? So it's just crazy that the private prison population grew 5 times faster than the overall prison population. The Sentencing Project put out a chart of population in the U.S. private prisons and immigration detention centers. So they're gathering data from 2000 to 2016 and stating the changes in percentage. So in 2000, the total private population was 87,369. At 2016, it was 128,063, which is a 47% increase. And then it breaks it down to federal and state private. So federal private prisons were at 15,524 in 2000. And in 2016, they were at 34,159, which is a 120% increase. The state private prisons were at 71,845, and in 2016 they were 94,164, at a 31% increase. And then it looks at the private immigration detention centers. So in 2000 they were at 4,841, and in 2016 they were at 26,249 at 442% increase. So in 2016, there were some growing concerns about the poor conditions and the lack of evidence to support that the cost was saving the government money to run these or to contract with these private prisons. So the Obama administration announced that they would start to phase out private prisons rather. Then Trump was elected, and that decision was overturned. In fact, in April 2017, the GEO Group was granted a $1.1 million contract to build the first detention center under the Trump administration. Of interesting note, the Trump family business has benefited from the for-profit prison companies, according to the Center for American Progress. Also suspicious under the Trump policies have increased the number of incarcerated immigrants, leading to the need of private immigration detention centers. So I read in an article that from the Center for American Progress, that the BOP's former director of research said, you can squeeze money out of the system. At some point, you start to lose quality. It said that assaults are double in private prisons than in public facilities. Private prisons have systematic problems with maintaining secure facilities. In 2016, a report by the U.S. Department of Justice said that privately operated facilities are less secure, less safe, and drastically more punitive than the public sector. And inmate-on-inmate assaults were almost a 30% rate higher. Also in 2016, the Walnut Grove Correctional Facility was shut down after a federal judge disclosed that it paints a picture of such horror that should be unrealized anywhere in the civil world, including rape of the younger inmates by older inmates, and guards denying medical care to inmates, and guards having sexual relationships with inmates. There's a whole lot of stigma around that. Working in a prison myself, in a public prison or state prison, it's a non-profit prison. We have strict rules and policies regarding healthcare and what they're entitled to, and how fast they receive it. And then there's also a lot of policies and rules put in place to reduce and prohibit sexual relations between inmates and staff. It's actually a felony to have a sexual relationship with an inmate, leaving you a sex offender if you get caught, not only losing your job, but ruining your life. So the for-profit prisons, I wish I could figure out how to link a video to this, because there is a great video on, it shows just their rules and regulations on population is much different. They don't have a, I guess, a license to the number of inmates they can house. They put bunk beds. You see pictures of bunk beds in the chow hall where inmates are being housed because they're overflowing. And that's okay with them. They just want the money. They just want to profit off of them. In our facility, we have rules on how many inmates can be in a certain area, and how many overall we're licensed to have at the facility, versus each pod. I think that a lot of riots in the South are caused by inhumane conditions at the for-profit prisons. It leads to a lot of tension, and it's unsafe, and they reduce not only training hours, but they reduce their employees. They reduce, it was said that one for-profit prison went months without a full-time physician. That's just crazy and shouldn't be allowed. I know that our prison, if we don't have the adequate staff, they call in staff from an agency, and so we get a lot of agency staff, because in the prison line of work, or in the prison field, there is a lot of turnover. It takes a really special person to be able to work in that and enjoy it, and not let it get to them, and not let the inmates or the other staff, a lot of staff are bitter too, get to them. So we call in agency staffing, and the for-profit prisons just run shorthanded, and that creates a danger to everyone involved, inmates and all the staff, even visitors, if they come. So the bottom line for me is for-profit prisons are short-staffed, overpopulated, and dangerous due to living conditions and the push to make a quick buck off of criminals. It's just, we're not there to punish them or treat them inhumanely, because they are humans. They're doing their time. Their punishment is prison. So we're there to make sure that they're safe and stay healthy, and that's it. And for-profit prisons don't even seem to think that. They're just there to house people or house criminals and gain as much money from them as they can. So in the end, they're not really cheaper. They're more dangerous and cost lives. I hope that you learned a little bit, and I wasn't too blah, 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 blah. Okay, have a good day.